Hi there, just a video about the proposal to have I don't know if it's a serious one or not, an Ashes series in India, and what a really stupid idea it is. I'm just going to talk about why why it's a stupid idea and what's behind it. And I suppose there's three issues for me here. One, Australia as a country, and the way Australia as a country is heading or has headed. Um, and Two, the venal nature of cricket boards across the world. And three, how cricket is too Indian centric at the moment, and how that kind of damages its integrity as a sport, or as a credible sport, I would say, in comparison to sports like football or rugby. So, firstly, the Australian suggestion from an Australian about the Ashes being played in India is not just purely a naked financial suggestion. Um, it is also um, a kind of in keeping with Australia as a country. Australia, when I was young, was part of a continent of its own, the Australasia. Um, the vast majority of its population were British or Irish in terms of their background and their DNA. Um, their culture was British and Irish. Um, they still have our monarch, and they still have a flag on their flag. So there's a Union flag with stars around it. Now, it's also a country with a shared history, not shared history in terms of um, things like battles in the past, battles like Gallipoli, but also a shared history in terms of culture. You think of all the kind of British people who've gone to Australia in the past, and Australians that have been welcome in Britain in the past. People like I don't know, people like Michael Hutchins or Kylie Minogue off the top of my head. Um, and and the comedy character Les Patterson and Dame Edna Everage. I can't remember the person's name who's behind them, but yeah, that person. What was his real name? I can't remember now. But there's been big Australians, a nice kind of cross cultural link there between Britain and Australia over the years, and also things like. Um, Soaps, we get Australian soaps in Britain like Neighbours and Home and Away, and likewise they get our kind of music and films, etc. And so it, in a way, um, Australia was like a kind of, uh, was still kind of like a part of Britain in one sense. Um, Over the years, it's changed, and over the years, Britain's changed as well. But Australia has changed, not just in terms of demographics. So Australia demographically is less kind of Anglo-Saxon, but so is Britain. So Britain is a country where its capital is majority non-white British. So, in that sense, in demographically, there's a similar thing going on. Similar thing in Europe, similar thing in Canada, New Zealand, etc. But there's something different, and that is that Australia are pivoting towards Asia and being Asian, and moving away from that Anglo-Saxon background and heritage and history, and moving towards China, India, Vietnam, etc. And so this plays into that. I would not be shocked if at the end of the century Australia didn't have the Union flag on their flag, didn't have our king as their monarch, um, and didn't um, and were probably majority Asian in terms of the populace. I think that's the way Australia is heading. So you have to factor all this in when looking at this. Second point, cricket boards are incredibly venal. They're venal in a way that even makes someone like FIFA blush. They will just do anything to maximise revenue, even if it means spitting on famous traditions in cricket. It doesn't matter to them. It doesn't matter to them that they gerrymander the World Cup uh, so that India play Pakistan every time. Doesn't matter to them. That would never ever happen in football or rugby. You never get in football with England saying, "I want to be in the same group as Germany because that maximises revenue." It's not happening in a credible sport. It happens in cricket because it's so India centred. So everything in cricket is commercially driven. to the extent that they even mess about with the integrity of the actual tournaments, integrity of the World Test Championship. India don't have to play Pakistan. Well, everyone else does. It doesn't matter because it's India centered because of for commercial reasons. So the integrity of a competition and the integrity of the sport is second place to a kind of commercially driven Indian dominant cricket, and that's it. So from that perspective as well, the idea behind an Ashes being played in Australia makes more sense. An Ashes being played in India, sorry, makes more sense, uh, even though it is a completely ridiculous idea. Now, it moves on to the third point. Given because India are so dominant in terms of commerce in cricket, and because they kind of drive cricket, they're not dominant like Australia in terms of winning trophies. Where when I was young, or West Indies when people before me were hanging around, where Australia or West Indies in their kind of glory years would just win everything until everyone was bored sick. Um, India aren't like that. They don't hold the World Test, never won the World Test Championship. They don't hold the World Cup. I mean, the World Cup, I think, if Australia won it 6 times, India won it twice. They are the best T20 side, and they've won that the most. And they have got the best franchise league in the world. So they're they're a big player in cricket, but the dominance is less on the field and more in terms of their kind of in control of the game and impact on the game financially. And because of that, it's led to, like I've alluded to before, with World Cups and World Test Championships, a kind of it's too dominant in terms of the integrity of tournaments, etc., the integrity of cricket as a whole, where it's too Indian dominated, and it's like no other sport. You don't get a sport like that, any other sport like that. And it's just, I suspect the reason why China aren't playing cricket is because India don't want them to. So things like that. Um, it is just you, the fact that you could, on the eve of the ICC trophy, say, look, we don't want to play in Pakistan, and it gets moved, and we'll just play in one stadium throughout the tournament. Everyone else will be moving around. Fine. That could not happen in football. Even some of the best sides in the world, Spain, France, whatever, they could not dictate where the tournaments are played, who they play, etc. So cricket is kind of mm, it's become so Indian dominated that the integrity of the game itself has gone. This also means um, that there's a kind of unfortunate byproduct of this, where you get a lot of Indian fans, or Indian ex-cricketers, and Indian fans who have cricket as a kind of vessel for Indian nationalism, and so in a way that no other sporting country does. In France, for instance, football is the opposite. It is the anti-nationalism. So when the football side wins, it's always, well, look, they've won, and the majority of the team are kind of from Moroccan or um, Martinique background, or other North African countries, Algerian or whatever. In England, it's a similar thing. Look at this side. Where would they be without all the people from the Windrush generation, etc.? So there is, and also the 2019 World Cup. You would think that most of the headlines would be about Stokes or Butler. A lot of talk was, look at Rashid and look at Ali. This is a proof that diversity is strength, etc., etc. So in Western countries, a sporting success tends to be a way of kind of putting a message forward, which is an anti-nationalist message. In India, it's the complete opposite. Um, and if you hear someone like Sunil Gavaskar, I mean, this could be like he could be on like a permanent rally for Modi. But look, if that's the way Indians want to do it, they can do it that way. It doesn't matter. But it does mean that the discourse is a much angrier and aggressive discourse, especially on things like Twitter. So someone will make a normal point and straight away cry more. This isn't the bloody East Indian Company, blah blah blah. And someone just made an innocent comment that I don't know. Jamie Overton should have had a wicket there. It was a caught behind. No, we remember the British Empire, and just anecdotally, that kind of language, that kind of approach, could not be used in Europe. So in Europe, you couldn't say, "Oh bloody hell, Germany got a penalty against us there. Typical bloody Nazis. Oh, this is like the bloody 30s all over again. We'll show them." Where's Bummer Harris when you need him? You could know if you said that in England, people would just think you're a bloody lunatic, and you couldn't if you're an ex-cricketer says that in England, then he's not staying in his position as a journalist, or someone says that in England that they're not staying as a kind of credible kind of a person. They're just seen as a kind of fringe person. So it's a different way. Um, a different way of looking at things. But it's the aggression as well. So it's a very aggressive, angry approach compared to a more kind of considered approach. But that's not all Indian fans. But the problem with Twitter is, you can give anyone Twitter, even like the local idiot, and he can kind of ruin it for everyone else. You also get on Twitter very kind of intelligent cricket fans from India who make really great observations. I mean, I remember talking to some who a detailed conversation with someone about Graham Hick. Graham Hick was a decent player, but he wasn't like Peterson or Cook or Ian Botham. But this person knew all about him. Now, it's very rare to get that type of a person who knows that much about other players from other countries, even kind of less well-known ones, in any other country other than India. So that is the plus side of India being so dominant in cricket. There's also, I'd say, a more common aspect, because Twitter isn't the world, and we know there's a lot of idiots on Twitter, and it's more worrying when you get the ex-pros behaving in that way, but also just in general, ex-pros and Indian cricket fans who are normal, not aggressive, angry ones, still think or do give the impression that cricket has to always revolve around them. So I remember some lady on Twitter talking about how good Jacques Kallis was. Just her comment about Jacques Kallis. All the Indians coming in, but he's no Kohli, he's no... Look, this is someone's own opinion about Jacques Kallis. And by the way, Jacques Kallis was a much better test player than Kohli, that's clear. But even if she was wrong, that's her own opinion about Jacques Kallis. Can you just leave her to have her own opinion, right? And, things like that. The fact that Dinesh Karthik was on Sky the other day talking to Alistair Cook, and he says, "Oh, I don't think English people like the IPL." And it's like, look, this isn't an attack on India, the country. A lot of people in England is a country that probably values, or English fans value Test cricket, like Australian ones, more than the other ones, and see franchise cricket as dismantling Test cricket and eroding its importance. That's all. It's not an attack on India. The same people who criticise the IPL in England criticise the 100, or criticise the Big Bash, or criticise any of those leagues. It's just the idea of franchise leagues. And those very people would be people who, would salivate over, Tendulkar or Dravid or Lakshman when they come over here to play cricket and speak with real fondness about these people. It's not an anti-Indian agenda at all. It's an anti-commercialisation, anti-cretinisation, anti kind of move from cricket being a sport to an entertainment. So I suppose it's made in the Indian kind of public and Indian ex-cricketers very thin-skinned. I remember doing a video on here, and it was about India winning the T20 World Cup, retaining it just recently. And it was just an idea that cricket kind of is unique in the sense it doesn't have a kind of unified world champion. South Africa were world test champions, Australia, I suppose, world champions, 50 over World Cup, and India, T20 world champions. Or we used to call it World T20 when we were younger. And it was like, well, shouldn't this be unified? Shouldn't we know who the best is? And I thought that was a pretty normal topic of conversation. You had about 4 or 5 people saying, "Oh, crime, or you're just jealous or something." Jealous? I was saying India were Test champion, were T20 world champions, and whether that had now surpassed the 50 over one. So it wasn't saying anything anti-Indian at all. But this kind of Indian kind of centered cricket being more Indian centered now, or just being Indian centered, it means that the Indian public or ex-Indian players have grown so thin-skinned that unless everything is about India, unless everything is an endorsement of India, it's an attack on India. and specifically if it's done from someone from England, lesser extent Australia,